So anyway, we've been talking for weeks, Jabe, about getting together to talk just the stuff that you and I love to talk about together.
To let the geekery flow.
Yes, let the geekery flow, which I love. And I have my stormtroopers with me for that.
You've got way better mugs than me. We have I have mugs based on the Iron Druid Chronicle books, but
Okay.
those are the only fancy mugs I have. You are outclassing me in the mug department.
No way. I bought this for my now 16-year-old for Christmas, and I kidnapped it from him.
Sure you did. That was for you the whole time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. But he gave me a good excuse to buy it. So anyhow, this is like my face too around my children. No matter what is going on.
if it works, mommy the stormtrooper over here.
Yeah. So
oh my God. So you're a Star Wars fan.
I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm more a Star Trek fan than anything. I love Star Trek. I grew up watching it, the original one, and then all of its spin-offs, which I've really
the original
enjoyed.
Next Generation. Yes.
Yeah. They're all
Star
good.
Trek is a heck of a journey. They're all good. I need to get into Star Trek Discovery. That's what I need to get into. I heard that was a very, very good series.
I do too. I haven't yet because I've been so involved with book 1 and getting book 2 started, and now the marketing and all of that. So my TV series
time for geekery.
My TV series watching time has been no time for that.
Nope.
That's okay. It'll resume after the holidays. I'll have time for that. What I do watch though are shows about medieval and Roman history, because that is very relevant to what I'm writing. So I can have that on in the background. Yeah.
And it fits the atmosphere. Like, it makes you feel like you're there, right?
Yes. I love it. I love it. All the battles and the blood and the war hammers. Yeah.
Yes. And the fighting techniques. Like, if you get a good medieval TV show or a good medieval movie, the sword fighting and the combat is done like so honestly.
Yes.
I taught martial arts for several years back when I was in college and a little bit after.
Oh, wow.
And I can watch movies like Troy, or I can watch Vikings, or I can watch, any of those medieval shows and look at that and say, okay, that's a legit move. I know how to do that. You would use that to counter this. The sword would go there when you stab it in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. And I love watching on the shows. I've watched like the documentary shows. So I see the anthropologists talking about the warhammer wounds in the skulls. And yeah.
That ain't no caffeine headache.
No, it's not. But it's interesting at the same time. So says the former ER nurse.
So you're watching the things and say, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that.
Or, yeah, kind of.
Oh, man, that must have been so terrible for medieval field surgeons to deal with. Change the channel.
Well, they didn't have to deal with them because that's the purpose of the Warhammer, was to do in people, which
One
actually
shot.
was fairly merciful. They went through and killed everybody off that was still surviving still was alive in spite of their mortal wounds on the battlefield. They just went through and did them in. So
our history is quite something.
So I actually gained an appreciation. You'll actually really like this. I gained an appreciation for when you read about the Crusades and you read about the Inquisition and so on, how brutal our European ancestors were. I gained an appreciation for how that occurred when I have been digging into Roman history.
Mm-hmm.
They were brutal, and they were brutal in their punishments. Horrid in their punishments. So one of the things I tripped across was Vestal virgins and how they came about. And one of their punishments for no longer remaining celibate was to have molten lead poured down their throats. I'm not kidding you. So we all know that the Romans emigrated through Europe took over
Wow.
Europe. Yes, yes. So obviously that killed them. That was
Yeah.
executing them. So we know that they took over what is now Europe. York was the capital of Rome for some time. And that, to me, is probably how all those traditions came about for the horrendous things that those governments did in order to extract information from people or during the Crusades and so on. And the word decimate, do you know where the word decimate comes from?
Decimate is the word that means 90% of their population is wiped out, right? And devastate is 100%. Is that what it is?
So decimate actually comes from um, the Roman military set up a system to maintain courage and loyalty during warfare, in the midst of warfare. That if a battalion did not exhibit courage during a battle, after the battle, they were gathered into groups of 10. Each group of 10 had to draw lots, and the person who drew the shortest lot had to be beaten to death by the other 9. Decimate.
Decimate. Oh my
Decimate.
goodness.
So decimate.
Deci 10, right?
Yes.
Mate. Okay, I got you.
And so
that's scary.
Nobody would want to do that to. So the battalions were all very close to the men in the battalions were all very close to each other. They spent years together, training together, in battle together, everything. And they did not want to have to do that with their bunkmates. And so they went forward in battle with great courage to avoid that fate, because that fate to them was probably worse than death, to have to.
That is pretty scary. And it's now that I see how big like the Roman Empire got,
Yes.
no one, because they were all motivated that way.
Yes. It sheds a whole new light.
Wow.
I had no idea. Until I tripped across. It's one of my rabbit holes I was talking about.
I got you.
Yeah. I came across this and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that that's how the word decimate came about. And we just use it in everyday language to mean something was taken apart by,
the meaning has changed so much that you wouldn't think that the etymology of it goes back to something as violent as that.
Right. And
that's crazy.
But it was very effective, obviously. And now exactly what you said, now we can see how they, in fact, were so successful in their military campaigns.
Those rabbit hole moments are kind of amazing, aren't they? Like,
yeah, they are.
When you're, I'm going to go and geek out here because we're geeking.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what we're here for.
Those rabbit hole moments when you are just doing something that you happen to enjoy and you come across something way more fascinating than you thought.
Yeah.
Like, part of what I used to blog about a few years ago, I did dictomancy blogs where you explain the etymology of a fancy, cool, silly word, once a week. And just because I like wordplay, I like the history of words.
I love it.
So I would go through this book here, the Dictionary of American Regional English. There's several editions of this, and I would just go through and read and see what words look silly that you read it and you're like, what does that word? What does pucker snatch mean? What does skeezix mean? Let's think. There's some good ones in here. I'm just gonna dig them up. What does sow belly mean? What does poor man's pie mean? What does red liquor mean?
Yeah, what does red liquor mean?
Red liquor is so during Prohibition, when you have a homemade still, like you're distilling whiskey at home, it's kind of, red liquor is a red-colored homemade whiskey that is like a little bit more bitter because you are making it with fewer ingredients. So red liquor takes its name from the red color, because whiskey is usually an amber color, but this is more reddish, more rust red. So red liquor, it's homemade Prohibition era whiskey.
Wow, that's really cool.
And just stumbled across it. Was looking around, these dictionaries, and there's gold mines of words all around you.
I bet. I need to get that book. What's it called? I'm writing it down.
The Dictionary of American regional English.
Okay.
And what it does is the front half of the book gives you maps of where the word originated. And I'm going to try to zoom in on that. But you get like a rough map of what state. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can.
Right there.
Yes.
So it's kind of a rough map of the United States. And there are dots and dashes and stars and circles for where words originated, like what state they originated in. And then so if you follow that and you look from this to the actual page, you will learn that the word podunk originated from southern Atlanta. Podunk meaning scattered but less frequent towns.
Right.
Podunk towns.
Some
yeah,
podunk town. We
some
always say
podunk
that.
town.
Yeah.
and there's so many different variations in there. I just had to geek out. I'm looking like, oh my God, this is so much fun. Do I have to stop? Can I just make this my career, reading this whole thing the entire day?
Yeah. Okay. So where did podunk? How did that word get put together? Tell me the etymology behind it.
It originated in southern Atlanta. Podunk being a town that is scattered, but there are very infrequent towns. Podunk. Po being the shortened word for pa, right? So a lot of people's fathers, when they leave home, they left their pa behind. So podunk was kind of their shortening of it. Whenever you hear a word that so podunk, podunk, right? They're very close together. So podunk used to be the word podunk because they would leave their pa behind to go to the big city, and their pa would stay in the town.
Oh, wow.
So that's how podunk became around. It got used as podunk so much, people got sick of the work involved by saying podunk. They shortened it to podunk. And a lot of words get shortened that way.
Yeah.
Bohunkus is another word like that.
Bohunkus?
Bohunkus. It means your butt.
I need to remember that. I love that. I'm going to use it at work. Bohunkus.
Get your bohunkus out of here.
Yeah. I've never heard that.
Oh, words are so much fun. I mean, that's the English teacher, that's the English teacher.
That the words are fun though. That's the writer.
And you can use them. Like if you reading Ales, Agents, and Alchemy, you better believe I put some of those crazy words in the book. You better believe they're in there. You have to use them. They're fun.
Put it in the correct context, everybody's going to know what it means. So yeah. That's awesome.
Wow.
I love the word tookus. I think tookus is a great word, which is bohunkus.
Tookus, bohunkus, keister.
Yeah.
There's so many good words.
Yeah.
So here we are geeking out on a Saturday morning about synonyms for butt. Very professional, right?
But it's great. I mean, because that is so that's a powerful emotion though. You're talking about a powerful emotion when you're saying get your butt out of here or get your butt in here or I'm going to kick your butt.
Yeah.
That is.
And it feels like every generation has to come up with their new word for butt because it makes it feel unique to them.
Right.
I mean, in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up, keister was huge and was popular.
Yes.
There was derriere that was popular, back then. And now you don't hear derriere or keister. You hear ass all the time.
Yeah, you do.
So give it another 10 years and we'll hear something else.
Right. I'm looking forward to that. I'll remember this conversation when that new word evolves. I will too. It's like
you can raise your hand and say, I followed the history of the word butt before it was cool.
When I worked in the ER, I had a physician who he said, I refuse to write gluteal in my notes. He says, I write a butt is a butt is a butt. And I write in the butt.
In the butt.
In the butt.
Yeah, let's not be technical. We all know what it is. It's the
butt. So that is amazing. God. I know. It's awesome.
Oh.
So alchemy is also really cool because it's been around it's been around in the Far East and the Mideast for thousands of years. It's been around in the Western hemisphere for 2,000 years or so.
Hmm.
Documented was Mary the Jewess, who I love the fact that the first documented Western alchemist is Mary the Jewess, a woman. I think that's great. And she invented the bain marie, which is still in use today in cooking and also in chemistry labs to maintain something at a constant temperature in a water bath, which I just find wonderful. She invented that. And that's why it's called the Bain Bath Marie.
The Bane Bath Marie. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That
The Bath of
etymology.
Mary.
Hmm.
Yep. The Bain Marie. So if you type it in, you'll see what it is, but that carries her name 2,000 years later, all over the world. And I don't think people realize that's where it came from. And I love that.
Bane Marie. Yep.
Bain
Hmm.
Marie. And also Aristotle, though, came up with the fifth element, uh, which also quintessential comes from.
Yes. You have done so much research into like the oldest genealogies of alchemy, and like my roots only go back as far as like Dr. John Dee and the old, like, 1500s 1600s alchemists. um my goodness, I have to catch up to you.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't need to. It's all like there isn't a need to catch up. We all have our places that we love and that we want to write from the heart. So it's not a competition. It's what we want to do. There are I love the fact that you love writing about the prohibition, and I find that fascinating, and I can't wait to read your writing and dig into it through you. So to me, that's really cool.
It's such a fascinating era. I mean,
It is.
when you see the lengths that people went to get
Mhm.
something as simple as we have alcohol right now, uh, and it's fun weaving that history into stories. I mean, you get a kick out of weaving the alchemy into a story with your own characters,
Right,
with your own heart in it.
right,
And that geekery for you hits for me with anything Prohibition era. Before I
right.
did Ales, the manuscript I wrote before that was The Reaper's Replacement. And it's about the Grim Reaper's bodyguard who loses her bodyguard gig when he gets murdered in broad daylight by an escaped demon.
Wow.
And Ava, the main character, lived through the gold rush, and she lived through Prohibition, and she lived through the Cold War. So I can do a Doctor Who and write a short story, 4,000 words, of Ava being in the gold rush, of her being on the East Coast during Prohibition, of her rum running with the Great Lakes rum runners, of the
Mhm.
Cold War and her being involved with the Cold War. You know, it that storytelling is fun because you're learning about history and you're making it relevant by weaving it into like an urban
Yes.
fantasy thing.
Right, right. So there you go. So there is no need to catch up. If you ever have a question, just call me.
I will probably have more for the when the sequel hits and say, you know what? Here's how. That's another spoiler for the next book. You get to see the warden making craft cubes.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
makes the alchemy. That's part of the plot. You watch him making them and giving them to new alchemists.
oh, I can't wait to read that.
So I will ask you, say, hey, you know about the symbology. You know about the history of alchemy. Like, does this sound like a good evolution?
I'll send you, I have a PDF of a ton of alchemy symbols. I'll send it to you so you don't have to find them.
I'm making my own because I want
Yes,
the magic system's
right,
rules to be
right,
something that is purely its own.
right. But you can
So
model them
weaving genuine ones
afterwards.
in would be so cool.
But you can take them and model, and also you can look at the ingredients that go into the ale and look at what these stand for, because they are true elements and true compounds, and decide how do you want to make your symbols similar to these based on what are the ingredients in the ale. And that way they'll
Yep. I
have true
mean,
meaning because they'll pull from the universe. They'll pull
they,
from,
they will pull from that reality.
they'll be quintessential.
Hmm. And people who are in on it will recognize and say, that looks
Yes,
familiar.
yes. But they'll be
Now that I see
quintessential.
that, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Because
There's,
they're going to pull from the unseen, which is what the fifth element is. The fifth element is which is unseen around us, that explains what moves things and what makes things happen, and creates reactions and creates events. So that's what the fifth element is. So you're going to be pulling that if you do that.
Yes.
Or the
I'm
warden
only a
will be.
quarter of the way through, so I need to start making up new symbols
Yeah.
and weaving them in with the genuine ones. So yeah, dude,
So
share it.
I will.
Share the heck out of that. Yes.
I will send that to you. And it is it's mine. I bought it, so I can share it with you for you to use for inspiration. So you're not going to be infringing on anything.
Reading materials for the weekend. Yes.
That's the third one I've sent you. I love it. This is great.
The blogs and the Alchemy. I mean, and then you've got the regional English dictionary. I can't exactly send you a giant log.
No, but I'll look it up. I get so much from you, Jade, though. I love this. I love this back and forth with us. I think it's great. It's so much fun. And I love the idea of having an entomologist and entomologist on at the same time, because they get so confused by people and they're so close in their own naming convention.
It sounds close.
It does. It does. But the entomologists can tell us how the bug names came about, or their geographic area names, or their dirt names that they love living in. And I think could be a really fun conversation.
And the entomologist knows all about the ents.
Yeah. So I think it would be a lot of fun. But anyway, so tell us about brewing. Tell me about
beer
brewing, not us. I sound like I have a multiple personality. Tell me about brewing.
Oh, beer brewing. Well, so what got me started down that road is Wisconsin is a very big beer state. And I might be living in Ohio now, but there are dozens upon dozens of independent breweries.
Wait, where do you live in Ohio?
Columbus. And there are also a lot of independent breweries in Columbus.
I need to come meet you one of these days, because I end up being in Ohio quite a bit. But anyway, go ahead, by all means.
It's like a 3-hour drive from here to Pittsburgh, maybe-ish.
Yeah.
That Greekery needs to happen once
it does.
Go to a brewery around here. They have the Columbus Company. They have what's the other one? There's one downtown. 16-Bit Arcade sells their independent beer. I just can't remember the name of the brewery. Rheingeist is the one in Cincinnati. There's so many good ones around. But so Wisconsin is a big beer brewing state, and I'm like, you know what? I toured breweries. I know what goes into them. How can I make this into a story? Because it's fun going on brewery tours. You ever been on a brewery tour?
No, but I would enjoy that. I would also enjoy a whiskey tour sometime.
Oh, whiskey tour would be fun. You probably want to go down to Kentucky for that. But on a beer tour, they show you the vats and they show you where the ingredients, getting put in. It smells really heavy of hops and of yeast, and it's like it's the same smell for me that when you read a book and you smell the inside of the book, like that kind of spirit comes out when you're doing a brewery tour. And I'm like, dude, I want to know every step of this process so that I can write it into a book, and so I can eventually get my own and brew my own at home. Once we get a house, I'm going to start making that a hobby in the basement, start making my own. Just because it'd be fun. It'd be fun to see what flavors you can get out of it. And I want to involve honey in the beer, because the honey or sweeter beers are always kind of more my favorites.
Yeah, me too. I'll drink your beer if you put honey in it.